Aloha. I'm Paul Deloria for the Community Investigation, where our team of engineers, scientists, and other researchers have been involved with investigating the Lahaina Fire for a year and a half. And we are taking that research and applying that to the Los Angeles fire. And it's very telling as we do this. There are over 30 similarities that start to give an overview of a strategy that's used not only in these fires, but also 46 other fires that have occurred throughout the United States since 2014.
We will explore the similarities between the communities, pre-fire conditions, weather, fire cause, spread, and anomalies. This comparison sheds more light on the questions: were these natural or engineered events? The tragedy is shocking. Lahaina had 2,200 structures destroyed, consuming 2,170 acres and 104 deaths. Los Angeles had over 17,000 structures destroyed, consuming some 37,000 acres with 29 deaths. Although the scope of the destruction is different, there is a shared trauma, economic impact, and long term recovery. And the similarities between these communities go well beyond this. The Haina residents were well established with generational ties, and Maui's cultural epicenter and the former capital of the Hawaiian kingdom. It was also the small business center and top income producer for Maui. The island is a strategic military priority with one of the most advanced computers on the planet. And also, an increasing number of billionaires are making this tropical paradise their home. Los Angeles likewise had highly valuable real estate and a well established community. Both Palisades and Eaton had a history of autonomy from LA County, and it was well established with generational ties. AI development and military installations and military contractors like Lockheed Skunk Works populated the area. And California is the fifth largest economy in the world, and investors needed real estate for the upcoming Olympics. Both areas had plans for smart cities. Governor Green making a speech at the United Nations a month before the Lahaina fire, bragging about having Hawaii smart cities and UN sustainability goals. Governor Newsom bragging their smart city will take place and be part of the Olympic preparation for 2028. Both areas are prone to fires. Lahaina had a fire in 2018, and it made our community aware of the danger of high grasses and brush from the surrounding abandoned sugarcane fields. Commitments were made for cleaning the brush and making fire breaks. However, that promise was maintained for 1 year and then stopped. And then we had heavy rains 8 months prior to the Lahaina fire, with high vegetation growth, followed by drought. And the fuel was there then for an urban interface fire. In Los Angeles, many fires have been driven by the Santa Ana winds. The more recent, in December 2017, the Southern California wildfires, and then in 2018, the Thomas Fire. Likewise, Los Angeles had heavy rain 11 months prior to the fire, with heavy vegetation growth that was followed by severe drought. Dead brush and grass accumulated, making it a tinderbox. Also, the county did not cut or maintain the needed fire breaks. Water access and reserves were reduced prior to the fires. The Santa Ynez Reservoir needed a cover repair. But instead of leaving the 117 million gallons water for emergency, they drained it. And it was next to the Pacific Palisades. Los Angeles County cut the fire department budget by $17.5 million the year prior, slated largely for vehicle repair, leaving over 100 fire trucks disabled. In both Lahaina and Los Angeles, the electrical transmission companies were required to invest heavily in alternative energy like solar, therefore neglecting transmission repair and maintenance. The fire threat and fire warning in LA was an all-time high. And they could have pre-deployed fire trucks at key locations when these high warnings existed as they have done in previous situations. And with this type of government management, no wonder 9 insurance companies dropped or denied further coverage since 2021. And State Farm dropped coverage for 72,000 homes because of the similar mismanagement. Both fires had the right conditions to start a blaze that could also serve as a springboard and cover up so that other technologies for spreading and starting the fire could be deployed undetected. Now, let's next explore the main driver of the fire in both catastrophes, the wind. In Lahaina, you can see the challenge of trying to contain the fire. And it's not natural that this isolated gusty wind remains stationary over Lahaina for over a day, despite the rapidly moving high and low pressure systems. Now, an element of weather engineering is particulate matter in the atmosphere, and also serves to lay down an incendiary to accelerate and enhance the fires. For the Lahaina, it was a thick white haze that came off the California coast and tracked along with Hurricane Dora, and it hit our Maui Island on August 7th and was its thickest on the 8th when the fires hit. Also, in Los Angeles, they had heavy chemtrail spraying that occurred months prior to the fire. And then right before the fire, there was these strange sprayings that are also occurred. And that makes it ideal for weather engineering. Also, possibly utilizing incendiary and nano tracking technology. We are producing another video which will go into the weather engineering and the footprints of these man-made interventions. Now, let's go into the cause and contributors of the fire and fire spread. Now, one of the main mantras that first occurred was climate change, and it was repeated by mainstream media for the cause of the Lahaina fire intensity. Headlines there were repeated to influence our beliefs, and Governor Green got into it also.
Difficulties with water management because there's just not enough water here in our islands. We then had the penumbra of a hurricane. Hurricane Dora had just passed south of us, leaving 60-mile-per-hour winds still with gusts up to 81 miles per hour. So what happened was when fire jumped from one spot to another, there were 3 or 4 fires going on at the same time. It got seeded very quickly with those 80-mile-per-hour gusted winds. And then the fire moved essentially at a mile per minute, 60 miles an hour down through the community. And that's what a fire hurricane is going to look in the era of global warming. And so we have to all do right now what we can to stop global warming and reverse it. Now, as to the sirens, we'll know soon whether or not they did enough to get those sirens going.
And not surprising, the same media dinosaurs also consistently blame the rapid spread of the urban fires in Los Angeles on global warming. Instead of using the repeated storyline, let's look at the historical temperature records for these areas and use common sense. For the Lahaina historical temperatures in Fahrenheit for August 8th, going back to 1946, was 80.2 degrees. And you can see that it was even cooler at 1994 at 79.6. And in 2023, when it occurred, the actual temperature on that day was 79 degrees, which was actually the 1946 records were actually warmer. And you look at the 10-year averages. For 1960, it was 80.3. Go to 2000, it was 81.8. And then 2020, 81.7. And then look at the Los Angeles January temperatures starting in 1919 at 60.2. And then we go up to 1975, it's 57.6, actually cooler. And then we go to 2008, 55.4.
real cold one, and then it goes to 2025, 56.7, which again is colder than the temperature in 1919. And then same with the yearly averages, starting with 1934 at 65.8, and then we go to 2010 at 65.7, and in 2024, when the fire occurred, it was actually cooler than 1934. So certainly the data does not support this theory that global warming was a main contributor to either fire. Now, both fires had start points. Our group found 6 potential sites of arson at the 3 major fires. And then in LA, there was 31 separate initial fire starts at different locations, and arsonists were suspected. Is this, though, a storyline to blow out of proportion to divert suspicion? It's a question mark. Then we have smart meters. They have the ability to start fires and can serve as a geolocator. Our investigations in Lahaina looked at digital versus analog, and through our investigation, we came up with nothing conclusive after looking at many digital and analog meters in the burn zone. It seems like the main contributor that mainstream media is focused on is the electrical transmission lines. They get most of the blame. The Lahaina story was a down live power line that started a flame early in the morning, and then it was contained and extinguished. Then, 8 hours later, it restarted, and its rapid progression down a gully, fueled by light brush and grass, moved quickly. And it then went over the highway, and then you can see over this area where there's an exit ramp, it's open field, light grass, and notice how it then went and progressed right into the housing area. I want to refer to this inception point later when we explore different anomalies. And then for LA, there was also charged electrical lines. Video showing the start of the Altadena fire from an electrical tower. Now, this type of fire, though, normally happens when the lines swing together and spark in high winds. But that happens between towers, not at the base of the towers.
Now that we have discussed the ignition, let's look at the fire spread. The Lahaina fires moved at a very fast pace, jumping from house to house. It was an inferno, with many people trapped in the flames. And this was in part due to blocked escape routes by the police that contributed to the 104 deaths. Within 4 hours, the Lahaina fire reached the ocean. People were jumping in the water to save themselves. And in the morning, what was once Maui's cultural and small business center was reduced to white ash. The devastation was shocking, with impacts affecting our Maui community over a year and a half later. In Los Angeles, the shock was magnified as a much greater community witnessed the destruction of their businesses and homes. Their fire started January 7th at 10:30 a.m., and Palisades and Eaton were the largest hit. The fire rushed through the canyons and hills, and it didn't slow down as it hit the more densely populated areas. The winds normally decrease as they spread out along the alluvial plain, and that did not seem to alter the speed and spread of the fire. The water ran out for both Lahaina and Los Angeles, and firemen could only watch. And questions remain about using other water resources that were available. With lack of water, the fires spread rapidly through high winds, embers, and radiant heat. The fires penetrated deep into urban areas in a way not seen before. There was ignitions into really city concrete jungle with little external vegetation. And here is the progress of the Palisades fire, and notice how rapid the initial spread was. Those watching the fires noticed the systematic progression lighting up seems like street after street. The fire damage was greatest at night for both Lahaina and Los Angeles. And there were many reports of buildings burning from the inside out. Now, more conclusive evidence is needed with witnesses and videos showing all sides of the buildings and assuring that no other external ignition occurred. If you have any data on this, you can go to our site. We have a Dropbox there, and that will be at the end of this video. Another anomaly is the destruction of coastal properties. In Lahaina, the long stretch of destroyed coastal areas raised a lot of questions. Because, see, we had the predominant winds blowing from the mountain to the ocean, and it just branched off from going from north and south. And the result was a long stretch of coastal properties that were destroyed. A similar questionable fire spread occurred in Palisades along the Pacific Coast Highway. The explanation given was that embers from the top of the bluffs and hills cascaded down to create this destruction. But how can that be when the tops of the trees are not burnt? How can the leaves still be on the trees and shrubs and grass not burnt if this narrative had truth? Now, the burning of hurricane-strengthened buildings with little external combustible materials raises further questions. Let's next explore 3 anomalies in the wake of the fires: trees, vehicles, and bodies. In Lahaina, we studied 28 trees that burned at the tree base from the inside out. This is what occurs when lightning hits a tree, indicating that this could be the imprint of plasma energy. One parking lot, we discovered 7 trees burnt from the inside out, with leaves and light branches unburnt. Some trees stood tall, hollowed out, with outer bark not even singed, and they were gouged out deep from the inside. Also, the taproot on many of these trees were reduced to ash. After they cut this one tree, I dug down 14 inches to where the taproot once was. Same phenomenon also occurred with trees burning from the inside out in Los Angeles. We do need more information and data on LA's burn zone on trees hollowed out by fire and burning deep into the taproot with the outer bark unburnt. Going back to Lahaina now, there were many trees that remained standing with leaves over buildings that were reduced to white ash. How can so many trees also remain when looking at the overall destruction that occurred? And a large portion of trees now are alive and healthy after a year and a half. In LA, the same dynamics occurred. Instead of the fire being spread by light brush and trees in the urban zone, it consumed buildings and vehicles instead. To learn more about the trees, go to our website, MauiCommunityInvestigation.com, and go to the Lahaina Reports tab, and there you'll find video number 3 and 4 that goes into much more detail on the trees. Now, let's next explore the vehicles in the burn zone and go back to Lahaina and look at the initial fire interface with the town. This is the area where the exit ramp was that had light grass and shrubs that burned quickly. Now we are zooming in on a utility truck that was in a large asphalt parking lot. The white jig-jag is a wheelchair ramp. 2 weeks after the fire, I walked to this spot, and this is what I was greeted by. Notice the engine and cab are destroyed, yet the Quonset hut, house, and even the light brush on the fence was not burnt. The back of the utility truck was not touched. There was gas in the gas tank, tires were not burnt, and even had aerosol cans that actually worked. Also missing from the government narrative are the strange incinerations of vehicles surrounded by unburned houses and light brush. And then there was the strange ways in which the vehicles were burnt, particularly engine blocks. And the same type of occurrence could be seen in Los Angeles with the vehicles. Look at this vehicle that is destroyed, and yet there is branches hanging over it that are untouched. There were vehicles burning from within without any noticeable external ignition. And then there were vehicles reduced to a heap. And that is an indicator of high energy weapons that goes after the denser materials like the engine blocks. And if you would like more information about the vehicles in the burn zone, go to our website under the tab Lahaina Reports and video number 2. Now, let's look at another anomaly that has to do with the bodies of animals and people in Lahaina. Like this cat, frozen in the middle of a stride with hair on its body still intact. Or this toad, frozen in a jumping stance with its external fine, but its internal organs were turned to ash. And there were also people reduced to a charred heap, not seen in a typical fire. And notice the hair is still on her body. As of the date of this video, we have not received any specific information on bodies of animals or people from the Los Angeles area. When I showed this data and information to 6 former fire captains and chiefs, they all said the same thing. This is more than just a natural fire. When we went to the government for Freedom of Information requests, we had 21 of them. And when we got responses, it was like for the vehicles, the only information they had was how many cars were in the burn zone. Or about the trees. They said the only information we have is how many trees were cut down. Or with the bodies. We didn't get very much response from the police department and the autopsies, but those who were involved with the autopsies said that they were only allowed to really go and get DNA samples and not go into any of the forensics of what happened to the bodies themselves. So in terms of constructing the narrative, this is the process where they kind of look at the data that they want to support and get out to the public. The rest is either not collected or suppressed in some way. Again, when we look at the people who were involved with these investigations, the main one is Underwriter Laboratories. They had a subgroup called Fire Safety Research Institute. But this is the same organization that was involved with the 9/11 tower collapse, and they came up with the pancake theory so that they can look at it as some type of natural event, which they did here in Lahaina. And again, our goal and objective with all of this is to get an open, public, transparent investigation and hearing. We don't want to support or be involved with any type of conspiracy theory and also cover-up. We just want to stick with the facts and data and let that tell the story as well as the testimonies and unbiased experts. If you could help us, you can sign our petition at our website. You can go to the tab there, and what that will do is also you'll get a regular email blast when we have our next video. Also, if you know legislators who could help maybe get some type of open public hearing, that would be great. Share this video with as many people as you can. And if you have the means, we certainly could use financial support at this point in time. We're trying to get samples analyzed from the burn zones in both fires, and it is costly, as well as trying to get other information in terms of our legal aspects and other approaches. So again, your support would be greatly appreciated. You can go to our website, MauiCommunityInvestigation.com, and please share that with other people. And we have a lot of information in there on 46 other fires that have happened throughout the United States. So please be informed, be consciously aware of what is happening around us right now at this point in time. Mahalo for your support.